Let's talk herd.
Another piece of learning that's coming to me at the moment and in the last, 12 months maybe, is how important it is to use the correct language always.
Yes.
Clean language, we call it, because words, it is so easy to project your inner dynamics onto the words that you hear. And
absolutely.
So these days I'm being really conscious of what language I'm using to describe or interpret somebody's experience.
Right. Yeah. So you don't mean within a session so much as how you interpret it afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I totally agree about that as well. Yeah.
How we're describing, our own experience is so important. What words we use to do that. Yeah.
That reminds me of a really funny experience I had once, and that it was years ago as well in Scotland. We had an animal communicator come, a woman that we had a few over the years, and because that was at the time when I didn't work with energy, and but I was fascinated by it and I wanted to. And so if ever there was somebody doing something like that, we would, have her along to speak to the horses. And she came and she said, and she wasn't actually what I would call a horsey person. She was, I didn't really have experience of horses. And she looked at one of our ponies, who was she had quite a strong character, this pony. She was a Dartmoor cross thoroughbred, and she was quite aggressive when we got her, and she was quite sensitive. And at that point, she had quite long feet, and we had kind of gone barefoot because we couldn't get a farrier, so we'd kind of been forced to go barefoot. And we were still figuring out, because that was at the time when nobody really, barefoot trimming wasn't really a thing yet. And so we kind of, we were sort of in no man's land. And she had quite long feet at the time. And this woman picked that up, but she said she wants to be shod. She wants her shoes on. And I can remember thinking, I doubt that, because obviously we were like, we'd become to realize that the shoes weren't really that good for their feet. And so I kind of thought that was funny, because I thought she obviously felt the lack of balance, and the fact that she needed, she would have been a lot more comfortable with a trim, but she interpreted the shoe thing onto it because she thought that horses need shoes. And that was quite like metal shoes. And I thought that was quite educational at the time, for seeing that, like you say, you have to be careful how you interpret, because you've got a filter yourself, and it's always going to come through that filter.
Do you mean that the woman interpreted that the horse needed shoes? Is that?
Yeah, she said. Yeah, she said.
So she may have been receiving a message from the horse that maybe the horse was feeling a lack of balance, and because of the woman's own experience, she interpreted that meant that the horses needed shoes. That's right.
But she said that the horse said she wanted shoes, and I think that's where we go.
Absolutely.
Like you say, you have to be careful. Yeah, because your own experience
because we're receiving all this information, and as you say, putting it through our own filters, and then giving it back to the world. Through our own filters. But what's interesting to me on that subject is, like, so I've got 18 horses altogether, and the core herd, if you like, is of 10. There are 10 horses in the core herd, and that herd of 10 is never, I'm not going to say never because that's too much of massive generalization, but very rarely is that herd disrupted, in any way. So it's a very solid organism with a really strong core,
Yeah.
And within that herd of 10, one has, so the alpha horse doesn't want to be ridden, he doesn't want to be ridden, so he's not ridden.
Yeah.
And then you have a sort of a variety of what's going on. Horses that do want to be ridden, horses that want to be ridden, sometimes horses that never want to be ridden. All of that.
Just to kind of interrupt you for a second, I just wanted to ask how they express that. Unless that's really going to divert what you're saying. How do they say that they don't?
So if we focus on this horse that doesn't want to be ridden, okay, his name is Smarty, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult.
I know these are the things that I love.
How he expresses he doesn't want to be ridden. So there's the obvious thing, which is that if you do ride him, he's he makes it very clear in dramatic behavioural responses that he doesn't want to be ridden. Yeah. But also, the quality of him, is that to take to him the idea that you would like him to carry a rider, when you take that to him, so I've brought him out of the herd and he's standing on the yard, and maybe I'm going to, bring out a saddle or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do that. He just shuts himself down.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you look at his eye, if you look at him in the eye, he's left town.
Yeah, they just kind of slide away.
And that feels to me. That comes across to me so much like this for me to now continue to do that is a violation.
Yes.
I am violating his desire. I'm violating him.
Yeah.
And then if you look at his history, he had quite a traumatic ridden history before he came. He's a Spanish horse, and he was brought over from Spain. He doesn't belong to me. He belongs to a very, very good friend of mine who has 3 horses in my herd. And he's been with us for a long time now. And he's been the alpha horse for a long time. But you can look back then at his personal history and you can see why, on the mundane level, maybe he doesn't want to be ridden. Because he's had quite catastrophic, incidents and trauma happen to him. But over the years, I've had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 different alpha horses, depending on where we're at in the flow of things. And I'm aware that at the moment in the horse world, there is a lot of debate about whether there is any such thing as an alpha horse. Okay? But all I can tell you is, in my experience of keeping horses for 40 years, that's how it is for me. There is an alpha horse. And there is a clearly defined social order within that. And of the 4 or 5 alpha horses that have led the herd here, only one of them was a ridden horse.
Oh, okay.
And I think that has something to do with it. I wonder if to be an alpha horse, your personal power has to be so readily available, and it has to be so, powerful that if riding has to happen to that, you debilitate it.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
And the one alpha horse that I had that was ridden was a dangerous horse to ride. He didn't belong to me again. His name was Shadow, interestingly. His name was Shadow. And, I would not choose to ride that horse because it was a dangerous thing to do. So I wonder
really
that.
interesting.
I wonder if, you know, if there is this deep kind of implicit wisdom, and they're so kind of humble with that, the horses. They're so modest about that. It's so, you know, not spoken, you know. And we come with our ego and our, you know, our stuff, you know, and they're so understated, and they don't, you know, they don't get up on a soapbox and preach to us about it, do they?
No, they're
they
loving.
Just very humbly stay within who they are, and you know, and then wait for us to catch up.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah, when you were talking about that, it made the alpha horses, it makes me think of what's happening in my herd at the moment, because I have there's one livery border, and he doesn't belong to me, of course, and I'm working with him. He's kind of rehabilitated a bit. He's a Spanish horse as well, and he was castrated quite late, but he's not very stallion. He's quite kind of laid back, and he took some time to kind of come back physically, and so he's had about 3 years just in the herd. But recently we started working with him again, and I'm at the stage of where I'm riding him just bareback, because that feels really good at the moment, and just with a kind of bitless bridle, and I feel that he enjoys it. I do feel that he enjoys it, and he doesn't do any shutting down or sliding. It's almost like he had to go through that. When we were working on the ground, his first thing is he would just plant and completely shut down. And then he would get, when that layer kind of lifted, then he would get really, really like so much tension and just crazy. And we just kind of stayed present when that was happening and didn't try and change it. And it was only really probably like one session each. And then he was just more present. So he's getting more and more present. But I would still say it's not the same as the dialogue with my horses, because it's like still me. I'm kind of taking responsibility. So I'm like, let's go and ride today. And he doesn't say no. I think if he said no, then we'd have to sort of think again about it. But he kind of enjoys it, and he enjoys the work. But the other horses are like, especially the young one that I've been really like doing this very kind of, it's a really kind of interesting journey, because with her, she's very clear about what she wants to do, and that we work together, and we can work together because we've got a really strong sort of emotional bond. But she, and not just her, but the whole herd communicated that they didn't want to work with any equipment. Because I'd been doing for ages, probably years, I'd been doing this kind of healing the equipment thing and healing the sad. I was kind of on a kind of not really a saddle anyway. It's a total contact thing, and it's like just a sort of band. It's not even a saddle, but we worked with that, and then we worked with the bitless bridle, and it was like, and then it was just like but Caramba, this mare, the young one, she got less and less and less inclined to have anything to do with it, the equipment. And I kind of realized one day that's what they're trying to say. They don't want to work with equipment. So I kind of just stopped that. And what I've been doing is just like, we've been working on them. It's almost like it needed to change round to them inviting me. And that's what it is with Caramba at the moment. And she has several times just come up and said, get on me. And you could be skeptical and say, well, why would a horse care? Why would they? If it was their choice, they wouldn't. But it really is real, because she's actually really insisted sometimes that I get on her. And I've only ever sat on her once in a traditional sense, because I brought her on very slowly, and she's never had a bit. And we'd never really pushed through in lunging or anything like that. So she kind of has always she's always kind of been in charge, to be honest. And so this sitting on her like that was quite, for me, from my traditional background, was like quite a sort of risk, because it's like there's nothing to stop her doing anything. And she's never really been sat on or contained or controlled or anything. But she wanted to do it, and it felt amazing. It felt like, like for me, that's what it is. But what I wanted to say was she's kind of heading towards being the alpha, although there's an older gelding who, not the other one, he's older, and he's kind of what I would call the alpha, because he's very wise, and he was very put off riding as well. So I don't know. But with Caramba, she watches what I do when I'm riding the other one, Gorion, when I'm riding the livery horse. And it really can tell, it really it fascinates her, but it kind of really challenges her as well. She just kind of gets this look in her eye, like wide-eyed, kind of like, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, I think there's something changing there, like some kind of process that's going on about just riding being that we have to be in control in any way, and obviously when you do riding in any way as we know it, you kind of do have to be, because you're the one giving aids and engaging the horse and straightening the horse. And so I've really been able to kind of open my mind about this and allow that there might be a different way where the horse is more in control. So we're kind of going there, and it's really interesting to hear what you say about how your horses, how they see it and how they perceive it. And
the question of riding is another question that I'm quite frequently visiting, at the moment. Yeah. And, I see, my individual horses' responses to when they, when I'm going to ride them or somebody's going to ride them. And, where I'm at, I am questioning it a lot, again, the ethical question of, why should they, and the impact of our physicality, on their physicality. Yeah. Even if we are, the best, even if the way we are in our bodies is fantastic, and we don't have any issues, and we're all integrated in our bodies, and it's all wonderful. To put that on top of, another being's physicality, it's a huge thing, and I hear you say, and I don't want to, I'm just putting it out there, because here's where I'm at in my own life's journey, what I'm questioning. When you say that the livery horse is enjoying it, what my question to you is, like you've asked me, how do you know that? I mean, is it him that's enjoying it, or is it you that's enjoying it? How can you know that he's enjoying it?
I would say it's just it's a feeling that I receive. So in the energy, and I don't want to kind of just justify it, because I like you say, I am totally, I'm borderline with the whole thing. And but I'd say that I've kind of learned through, or understood, that through working with energy, you can sort of make thoughts, like create thoughts, or you can receive them. And it's not just thoughts, it's like feelings and, patterns, everything. Yeah. So I would say, and receive from anywhere, like receive from the source or the universe or the birds, not just receive from But in this case, and it might not even be from him, it's just a feeling that I get occasionally of just well-being. And I would say that I just know that it's not me, because I do enjoy it. But then I don't think that I would impose that. Like, I wouldn't sort of fill in that gap just with that, because that wouldn't make me feel better about it. Like, I'm doing it because it's come about, it's like part of the situation, and his person wants to, and he, and I have been quite, I'm quite, I don't know how she feels. I think she's happy enough, but I'm quite like, we have to keep the sessions super short and, quite, not like go at it, and, just be really, really aware. And I didn't actually know that we would. I mean, I think she always kind of wanted to, and always thought that was the point. But for me, I didn't really know that we would actually come to this, that we would be riding again with him. So yeah, I'm quite, I just think at a certain point you kind of have to trust a little bit, just that sense. Like, that sense is quite strong in me, because I can really feel like, for example, one day I went to the barn, and I kind of had it in my mind that, because I get up because Karamba's really tall, so I get up on the side and I just sit there, and she'll come over. This is just something we've been doing like this in the last maybe like just the last 3 months. And she'll come up, and I kind of just sort of think to her, what do you want to do? Like, and I can just feel, it's like what you said about when they shut down. She doesn't shut down because I don't think she has to, or has never had to. But she just slides away in her energy. Like, physically, she'll still be there, but she just slides away. So I could get on her, but that would be a completely going against what she's telling me, and that subtle level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's sort of telling.
An incident just recently occurred around this issue. And I have a young man that helps me sometimes with the horses, and he's a very unusual young man, and he is very outside normal parameters. Yeah. And he had put up his tent in the field with the horses. He'd put up his tent. Yeah. And he doesn't ride, and he's never ridden. Okay. And so one night he's in his tent, and the horse Moth, who we've talked about, she ran up to his tent. This is how he described it. So she ran towards his tent. Yeah. And then she galloped off, and then she came back again, and he interpreted that, right, as meaning that she wanted him to get on her. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's never been on a horse. This is in the darkness, in the night.
Yeah.
Right? And he decides he's going to get on her.
Oh my God.
And so he did. He got on her.
Wow.
He didn't tell me this until a couple of days later, right? Or a day after. He said, "I've got something to tell you." So I said, "Okay." And he told me. And he said, "How do you feel about that?" And I said, "I don't feel very good about that," I said, "because this could have happened, that could have happened. How would your parents have felt if, you get kicked in the head and you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life? How are they going to feel? How am I going to feel about that?
Yeah.
I gave him all of that, catastrophizing. Okay.
Yeah.
That evening, okay, he went to have dinner with his parents, and Moth right, destroyed his tent.
Oh my God.
She didn't just take it down. She obliterated it. So it was in shreds, right?
Yeah.
How did we know it was her? Because she was standing amongst the wreckage, right? So here's the lesson for him, okay? She didn't run to his tent because she wanted him to get on her.
Yeah.
She ran to his tent because she was afraid, because there were a lot of chaffers flying in the air, which are these big, noisy, buzzy, clumsy beetles that bang into the horses. So she wanted his help. She was afraid. He interpreted that as, she wants me to get on her. Yeah, and that's how she told him that was not accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting issue, isn't it? And it's huge.
Yeah.